Have you ever had a strong feeling about something without being able to explain exactly why? A sensation that appears out of nowhere, and when you least expect it, proves to be true. For Carl Jung, these perceptions are not mere coincidences or random guesses, but a profound reflection of our unconscious psyche. He believed that intuition is an essential mechanism for understanding ourselves and making decisions that align with our true essence. But to really listen to our intuitions, we must first understand what lies behind them and how our mind operates on a level we often ignore. Jung dedicated much of his studies to the idea that within each person exists a vast, unknown territory, the unconscious. Not just a repository of forgotten memories, but a true universe of symbols, repressed emotions, and patterns that shape our perception of reality. Within this universe, there are two fundamental concepts that directly influence how we capture and interpret our intuitions: the shadow and the archetypes. The shadow is everything we try to hide from ourselves. It consists of feelings, desires, and aspects we judge as inappropriate or that simply do not fit the image we have built of who we are. Often, these traits are so repressed that we forget they exist. But they do not disappear. On the contrary, they operate silently in the background of our mind, influencing our reactions, impulses, and of course, our intuitions. When you feel an intense emotion without understanding the reason, it may be your shadow trying to communicate with you. Beyond the shadow, another crucial factor in shaping intuition is the archetypes. Jung believed that all human beings share a collective unconscious, a kind of psychological heritage containing universal patterns of behavior and experience. These patterns manifest in us as archetypes, symbolic figures that shape how we perceive the world and ourselves. There is the hero, who seeks challenges and self-improvement; the sage, who values knowledge; the rebel, who questions norms; the caregiver, who prioritizes the well-being of others, among many others. Each of us has a unique combination of these archetypes, and they directly affect our intuition. If someone has a strong ruler archetype, for example, they may feel a natural impulse to lead situations or take control of specific circumstances. Intuition, then, is not simply a magical sixth sense, but a profound psychological process, the result of the interaction between the shadow and the archetypes we carry within us. And to learn to listen to this mechanism more clearly, we first need to connect with these unconscious layers of our mind. This is the first step towards strengthening your intuition and using it to your advantage. If intuition arises from the unconscious, then understanding its internal elements is essential so that we can trust it and use it wisely. But how can we access this hidden part of the mind and recognize the signs it sends us? For Jung, the answer lies in self-knowledge and in carefully observing the patterns that shape our perceptions and reactions. This means that if we truly want to listen to our intuitions, we must learn to decipher the language of our own unconscious. And it all begins with recognizing the shadow. This part of the psyche harbors characteristics that we deny or ignore, yet they continue to influence our emotions and choices. Often, what we repress manifests in a disguised way, in the form of impulses, exaggerated reactions, or unexpected feelings. When you find yourself feeling intense anger, envy, or fear without a clear explanation, it may be a sign that your shadow is trying to express itself. And this is where intuition comes into play. Intuitive signals often emerge precisely from the deepest parts of the mind, where the truths we avoid confronting are hidden. Imagine someone who always assumes the role of a caregiver, prioritizing others before themselves. This pattern may be a reflection of a dominant archetype, but it could also be masking a shadow of insecurity or fear of rejection. At some point, this person might feel a strong intuition telling them to step back, say no, or set a boundary. However, if they are not aware of these internal elements, they may ignore this warning, believing it to be just a fleeting thought. Archetypes play a fundamental role in this process. They act as psychological molds that influence our behavior and, consequently, our intuitions. Some people have archetypes more inclined toward action and leadership, like the hero or the ruler, while others are guided by archetypes like the creator, who seeks innovation and artistic expression, or the sage, who values reflection and learning. When an intuition arises, it may be filtered through these archetypes, meaning that understanding which ones are most present in your personality can help you better interpret the signals you receive. For this reason, it is essential to develop the habit of self-observation. Paying attention to your reactions, impulses, and recurring patterns can reveal a lot about the origins of your intuitions. Practices such as reflective writing, dream analysis, and meditation can be valuable tools in this process, allowing you to identify patterns and understand what your unconscious mind is trying to tell you. After all, intuition is not something external or mystical, but a reflection of your own inner world. The more you know yourself, the clearer the signals from your mind will become. Even when we begin to understand the origin of our intuitions, there is still a fundamental obstacle. Something within us often blocks these instinctive feelings. We find ourselves hesitating, ignoring that persistent sensation trying to warn us, or even rationalizing against it. But why does this happen? Why, even when our unconscious sends us clear signals, do we struggle to listen to them and act accordingly? Carl Jung stated that we cannot change anything until we accept it. This means that to allow our intuition to flow freely, we must first remove the barriers that repress it. One of the most common barriers is the conflict between different parts of ourselves. Within the psyche, archetypes and the shadow often clash, creating an internal dilemma that prevents us from fully trusting our intuitive perception. Imagine someone who, influenced by the innocent archetype, sees the world with optimism and naturally trusts people. This quality can be positive, but it can also create a block when an intuition suggests caution. Suppose this person feels an inexplicable discomfort when interacting with someone, but instead of listening to this internal warning, they ignore it, believing the world is a safe place and that everyone has good intentions. In this case, the dominant archetype overpowers the intuition, leading this person down a path that may not be the best for them. The opposite can also happen. If someone grew up with a shadow marked by fear and distrust, they may have intuitions that constantly steer them away from opportunities, creating a barrier to personal growth. This kind of block makes the person see danger where there may be none, making it difficult for them to open up to new experiences. Thus, we see that both excessive trust and excessive caution can harm how we deal with our instinctive feelings. The solution, according to Jung, lies in the integration of the conscious and the unconscious. Instead of allowing one side to overpower the other, we need to learn to balance them. This means that we should not reject any part of ourselves, no matter how uncomfortable it may seem. If there is a distrustful side within you, it does not mean it should be suppressed, but rather understood. Fear, when balanced, can be a great ally in protecting against harmful situations. Similarly, trust can be powerful when accompanied by discernment. To achieve this balance, we must make peace with our shadows and learn to use them to our advantage. A good practice for this is to reflect on moments when your intuition was blocked and ask yourself, which part of me prevented me from listening to this signal? Was it a dominant archetype? Was it a trait of my shadow that I was trying to ignore? Over time, this analysis allows you to adjust your perception and free your intuition from the constraints that limit it. And once we begin to unblock these instinctive feelings, a new question arises. How can we refine them? Is there a way to strengthen our intuition and make it even clearer and more reliable? That is what we will explore next. Now that we understand what can block our intuition, an essential question arises. How can we strengthen it? If intuition is a reflection of our unconscious, then the more we explore this internal territory, the clearer the signals it sends us become. But this does not happen automatically. Just as a muscle needs to be exercised to become stronger, our intuition can also be cultivated and refined over time. For Jung, intuition is not just a random spark, but an active and dynamic process. This means that, by practicing certain activities, we can develop our ability to perceive and interpret the insights that emerge from the unconscious. Some of these practices involve strengthening introverted intuition, which seeks answers within, while others help refine extroverted intuition, which thrives on external stimuli. The development of introverted intuition requires us to dedicate time to looking inward, free from external distractions. Meditation, for example, is a powerful tool because it teaches us to observe our thoughts without judging them. During this process, patterns and sensations may emerge spontaneously, revealing aspects that previously went unnoticed. Reflective writing can also be an effective path. By recording thoughts, dreams, and feelings in a journal, we begin to identify connections that our conscious mind might not otherwise notice. It is like giving a voice to the unconscious and allowing it to tell us what it is trying to communicate. On the other hand, to strengthen extroverted intuition, it is essential to expand our horizons and explore new experiences. The more diverse experiences we accumulate, the greater the repertoire of our unconscious to recognize patterns and make connections. This can involve everything from engaging in conversations with people from different perspectives to challenging ourselves to step outside our comfort zones. When we face new situations, our mind is forced to interpret and process information more intuitively, enhancing the speed and accuracy of our insights. Art can also be a powerful catalyst for intuition. Jung believed that creative expression allows access to deeper layers of the unconscious. Drawing, painting, composing music, or even writing stories are ways to translate internal feelings without the need for words. Often, when immersing ourselves in an artistic process, unexpected ideas emerge, bringing answers that were hidden in the mind. Simply visualizing a problem in different ways, imagining how someone else would solve it or reinterpreting it as a metaphor, can already open new paths to understanding. But developing intuition is not just about seeking insights. It also involves learning to differentiate a true instinct from an impulsive or distorted thought. Not every gut feeling is a reliable guide. Sometimes our emotions can create illusions that make us believe we are following our intuition when, in reality, we are being influenced by fears, insecurities, or temporary desires. That is why, besides strengthening intuition, it is crucial to learn to question it. Is this feeling I am having truly coming from my deepest unconscious, or is it just an automatic reaction based on past experiences? Is this intuition aligned with who I am, or is it a result of external conditioning? Asking these questions helps us refine our perception and avoid falling into traps created by the mind. And this leads us to one of the greatest challenges in using intuition. How can we prevent it from leading us to wrong decisions? To what extent should we trust these instinctive feelings, and when should we pause and apply a more rational analysis? Even though we have learned to strengthen our intuition and recognize the signals our unconscious sends us, there remains a crucial challenge. Not every intuition should be followed blindly. There are moments when these instinctive feelings can lead us in the wrong direction, which is precisely why Jung warned about the danger of getting completely lost in intuition without the support of rational thought. After all, intuition is a powerful tool, but only when used with discernment. One of the biggest risks of intuition is its vulnerability to emotional distortions. Our past experiences, traumas, and beliefs can contaminate our intuitive perception, making feelings of fear, anxiety, or desire disguise themselves as intuition. Imagine, for example, someone who has been betrayed in the past and has developed an unconscious fear of trusting people. If this person feels an intuition that everyone around them is dishonest, does this feeling truly come from a deep perception of the unconscious, or is it merely a projection of their own insecurity? The opposite can also happen. Someone with a dominant caregiver archetype may have a tendency to trust people too much and ignore clear signs that they are being manipulated. In these cases, intuition may be distorted by an unconscious need to help, leading the person to engage in situations that, deep down, are not beneficial to them. This shows that without critical analysis, even intuition can lead us down mistaken paths. Therefore, before making decisions based on intuition, it is essential to learn to question it. A good exercise is to ask yourself, what is this intuition really telling me? Is there another possible explanation for this feeling? If intuition suggests a specific path, it is worth taking a moment to reflect on the pros and cons of that decision. In many cases, Simply delaying the response for a few hours or days can bring clarity, as it allows the unconscious to process the information better and reduces the influence of momentary emotions. Another important point is recognizing when intuition is leading us toward an impulsive choice. Jung stated that intuitive people often make decisions too quickly, without waiting to see all the possibilities available. Haste can be the enemy of wisdom. No matter how strong an intuitive feeling may seem, taking a step back and evaluating other alternatives can reveal an even better option. The key to using intuition wisely is not ignoring it, but balancing it with reason. The intuitive path is not always the best one, but it can often point toward possibilities that logic alone would not perceive. True mastery of intuition happens when we learn to listen to it, question it, and combine it with strategic thinking. That way, instead of acting purely on impulse, we can make conscious choices aligned with our true essence. But if intuition can be misleading, how can we know when to trust it? Is there a way to differentiate a genuine intuition from a fleeting emotion? Knowing when to trust intuition and when to question it is one of the most challenging aspects of this process. How do we differentiate a genuine perception from a temporary impulse? How can we avoid falling into the mind's traps without losing the ability to listen to the deep signals of the unconscious? The answer, according to Jung, does not lie in choosing between intuition and reason, but in finding a balance between both. Authentic intuition differs from an emotional impulse because it arises subtly and continuously, not abruptly and with anxiety. When a real intuition happens, it is not accompanied by an intense emotional storm, such as fear or euphoria. On the contrary, it manifests as a calm feeling, a silent certainty, an impression that remains present even when we try to ignore it. If a thought feels urgent and triggers extreme reactions, it may be a sign that it is not intuition, but an emotional response influenced by past experiences. Another important aspect is observing the pattern of your intuitions over time. If you notice that certain types of instinctive feelings usually lead to good decisions, while others frequently result in regret, this can indicate which aspects of your intuition are more reliable. Keeping an intuition journal can be useful in this process. Every time you have a strong gut feeling, write down what you felt, and later, go back and see if that intuition turned out to be correct. This exercise helps train the mind to identify which signals truly come from deep perception and which are just impulsive reactions. Additionally, a good way to test intuition is by combining it with small experiments. Instead of blindly trusting a gut feeling, try validating your perception before taking action. If your intuition tells you that a certain person is not trustworthy, for example, observe their behavior over time and see if the signs confirm your feeling. If a new path seems promising, take a small step first before fully committing. This way, you allow intuition to prove itself before making definitive decisions. Jung also spoke about the importance of paying attention to what he called synchronicities, seemingly coincidental events that carry a deeper meaning. Sometimes, our intuition manifests not only as an internal feeling, but also through external signs that seem to guide us in the right direction. An unexpected encounter, a phrase that appears at the perfect moment, an opportunity that arises just in time. All of these can reflect what is already being processed in the unconscious and serve as confirmation that we are on the right path. Finally, the most important thing to understand is that intuition is not something fixed or unchangeable. Just as our mind evolves, our intuitive perception also transforms as we learn to know ourselves better. Self-knowledge is not a final destination, but a continuous process. The deeper we go on the journey of exploring our unconscious, the more refined our ability to hear and interpret the signals it sends us. And that is what makes the study of intuition so fascinating. It is not just about learning to listen to an instinct, but about developing a real connection with our deepest self. In the end, true intuition does not just teach us to make better decisions. It helps us understand who we really are.